Hi everyone. We're talking to Andrew Tinning, formerly of New Zealand's campaign agency, DDB, then Saatchi and Saatchi, followed by a stint at Market Force in Perth, and now with his small creative shop, Shed. Is it Shed CSC?
CSC.
Yeah. Tell me, what does the CSC stand for?
Cocksucking Cowboys. No, unfortunately. No, it stands for Creative and Strategic Coalition.
Okay.
And the reason we did that was, Shed has many sort of different meanings, but it's quite a hard name to register because there's lots of places. So Creative and Strategic Coalition, that's kind of what we wanted to do, was to create a place where people could collaborate as opposed to your traditional kind of multi-layered agency structure.
Okay, so you've worked your way through the industry, and one of the crucial tasks has been engaging freelancers like suppliers to bring your work to life, directors, photographers. What sort of qualities do you look for in these professionals?
I guess at the end of the day, you're looking for people that you can actually work with, because the word, there's collaboration sort of, or coalition, for want of a better word, in our naval, and I guess that's a really important part of the process. You want to work with people. Talent, of course. You want people that are incredibly talented, people that can sort of, take your vision and your idea and actually, bring that to life and enhance it. But you're also looking for people that you can actually work really well with. People that sort of understand you and also understand that, you're in the business, to make things for your clients. So, you want people that can collaborate.
Do you ever want to see the commercial or the stills campaign that you're about to create on their reel? Is that a positive?
Look, absolutely. But, the reality of it is, not everything's, an award winner. And I guess at the end of the day, you don't set out, that's not your primary objective. We are we are a service, and we are, a service within a marketing industry. So, our job is to sort of sell products, services, whatever it may be. I think I might start that one again, Ross, actually, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Waffling. So look, do I want to see commercials or stills on, the supplier's show reel? Of course. I think, we should all sort of, we all strive to take pride in our work. But, the reality of it is that not every piece of work is a showpiece or a showstopper. Some things have to be done really, really well, but they might not be the sort of things that, do end up on someone's reel, because, it might be a standard piece of retail work or a standard piece of communication. So look, I think, obviously you want people to take the same amount of pride in their work as what you do. But look, not everyone's going to be in the trophy cabinet, so there's not that amount of pressure. But in saying that, when you've got an idea that it's not only a great idea for the client, but it's also, it is a sort of an award-winning piece of work. And when those do come along, of course, you want, your supplier to see that and realise that, and do their utmost to make it a reality and take the same level of commitment and pride to making it happen. Yeah.
You have a wealth of experience in creating compelling films for clients. Tell me about how you discuss strategy and subtleties such as art direction and shot selection with the director.
What I always tend to do personally is, I have an idea in my own sort of head about how I see something, but at the end of the day, I want somebody who's going to kind of like take that and make it better, because I don't profess to be, an expert in the areas that you choose people to work with you. You have an understanding of film, you have an understanding of photography, and all of those sorts of things. So what I like to do is sort of have some examples of the sorts of things that I like, but I like to just make it really collaborative and open it up for discussion, and invite the people that you work with, give them an open brief, I guess, but within realistic boundaries and parameters. And in that list of parameters is, you have a client as well, and you've got to be able, and you have a budget, so you've got to be able to work within those parameters as well, and just keep it really open and honest. And then, keep the discussion really transparent. I mean, if there are things that you don't like, then you have to be vocal about that, and that goes both ways. I expect to hear that from the people I work with as well.
As creative director, you're essentially a leader of a group of passionate creative people. What sort of special qualities are vital in your role as creative director?
I think you have to be. Well, gosh, I mean, I think you have to kind of be a people's person, I guess, and you've got to be open to all different sorts of personalities. Because, I mean, I think when you assemble a creative department, or in my experience anyway, I mean, I always try to sort of get lots of different types of personalities, because from when you do that, you get different, I get different levels of input, and a really good, interesting, eclectic mix of people as well. So, as a leader, I guess you can't sort of be one type of person. You've got to be open to lots of different personalities. There's all sorts of, different people have different styles. I mean, I know people that are quite dictatorial in that role, but, I mean, I tend to try and, be encouraging. You've got to be firm but fair as well. And, as I mentioned before with your suppliers, I mean, you actually employ creative people that, that are going to sort of teach you and surprise you as well. So, you might have a certain way of thinking about things, but you've got to be open to the way other people work. And, yeah, I think you've got to allow people to make mistakes, and, that's what you've got to do, really. I mean, and particularly when you're working with younger people, you've got to be able to impart your knowledge and experience and those sorts of things as well. Yeah.
There's a huge difference between self-confidence and a big ego. Firstly, how do you separate the two? And secondly, how do you manage or harness both these traits in a team member?
I think, ego is, it's really interesting, because an ego can be a positive thing. It can also be quite a negative thing as well. I think, ego can actually, if it's out of control and not managed properly, can actually be really problematic. The difference between, self-confidence, that's where I think, self-confidence, the people I know that are confident, they don't have to shout about it, if you know what I mean. It's about being able to, I mean, confidence inspires confidence in other people, and that's, what you want. I think, when you are managing clients in particular, because at the end of the day, you've got, we're not making stuff for us, we're making it for people's businesses. And, relationships are really, really important. You can't afford to have people who think they're bigger than their client, or, you know what I mean, and that they're doing it for themselves and their own sort of glory, because it's just not what we do. I mean, we're there to provide, a service, and we're getting paid to do that. And particularly in today's market, those relationships are really, really important. So you can't afford to have people that don't get that. So people that show signs of that sort of arrogance, I guess, you've got to nip that in the bud really, really quickly.
Question part 1. Is it true as a general rule that creative people don't like criticism? And part 2, how do you manage that?
It's not necessarily they don't like criticism. I think, a lot of people, creative people, can tend to be insecure. I think that's a trait that you find within a lot of creative people, and that can manifest itself in lots of different ways. You can get people that can come across as sort of being arrogant or difficult, but a lot of that comes down to their own, personal insecurities. I mean, I think, you all go back, a lot of, creative people I've worked with have been the oddballs at school and those sorts of things. So, you can kind of get, it's all about acceptance, and I think that can often be misinterpreted when, someone's idea gets rejected, because you do put so much of yourself into it, a lot of yourself into it, and, you can take it personally, I guess, and that sort of whole thing about rejection. So I think, your role as a CD is to it's just to try and manage people, and rather than focus on it being a criticism per se, it's just going, well, it's not criticising, it's just not necessarily right in this context. But, it's still really, there's something really good about it, and, how can we kind of make it better? How can we make it answer the brief a bit more, or whatever, And also just teaching people to suck it up too. I mean, that's one thing that you do learn along the way. Rejection is a big part of what you do.
So you're really managing expectations in a lot of ways.
Well, you are, absolutely. I mean, you've got to sort of pull people back into line, and it's that whole thing I said before. It's about, you're not making this ad for yourself. You're making it for somebody else, and it's got to be right for the client. And sometimes there are reasons why it might be, but there might be other various reasons sort of why it's not, if that makes sense. So I think it's about just making sure that everybody sees it for what it is.
Do you think competitiveness between creatives is a good thing?
I think it can be a healthy thing as long as the energy is channeled in the right direction. It's good to have that level of competitiveness, but you don't want to sort of create favourites as well. I mean, you'll get people in the agency that sort of work their ass off in the corner, and they're doing all the, the bread and butter stuff, and they're as equally valuable as the guy that's, winning an award for, some one-off newspaper ad, you know what I mean? As long as the competitiveness is channeled properly, I think it is a good thing.
With the explosion of web sales and iPhones and apps, and has this meant like a rethink regards your team's makeup?
Yeah, look, I mean, what we do, because we're a smaller agency, is, our model's kind of based on outsourcing people. But look, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a sort of an older practitioner. I've been doing this for well over 20. Christ, I'm going to give my age away, but well over 25, 26 years now. And when I started, God, we did typesetting, paste ups. There were no Macs, there were no cell phones, there were none of that stuff. But I think the one thing that hasn't changed is it all comes down to an idea. I mean, everything else is just a medium. So, at the end of the day, you still need a great concept, and you still, you still can't. That's still the most important thing. So, you need to work with people that understand that. But, it does, just as you used to have specialists in other areas, back in those days, you need specialists that can actually execute things and make things happen and understand the technology, because, from what the technology can do, ideas can come as well. So you have to have a pretty eclectic mix. And I think the one thing that you do need now is, because with technology, everything's become so much faster. So, you need people that can do shit and make shit and be multi-skilled. You know what I mean? You can't afford to have someone that just sits in the corner and writes, or, they've got to be thinking. And same with art directors in particular. People that can actually get in and use Photoshop and make stuff and manipulate things and create content. I think that's really a really important thing moving forward.
What are some of the key communication skills that you must engage in when you're dealing with clients?
I think you've got to be really patient, and I think you've got to, you've got to understand their business and their business objectives. I think you've got to be prepared to listen, but you've also got to, have the courage, I guess, to actually tell them when they're not right, because they're looking for, they're hiring experts. It's you shouldn't say yes to everything, for sure. I think you've just got to be really understanding, and you pick your battles, and I think forming a really good relationship with people, because everyone's under pressure, and everyone, they want, like their jobs are under pressure almost. So if you can work with them and understand them, and be a partner, and I think that that working on that relationship is really important.
Here's a hypothetical question from a junior creative hopeful. What would make you look more closely at my resume? Are there extra elements that I could include that would give my resume an edge?
Well, it's interesting. I always sort of look for people that have interesting life experience. So that's an important thing. Practical skills are a really important thing as well. I think, like, when you get a lot of kids that come out of uni and stuff like that, who have been through award school and those sorts of things, they've got sort of books full of wonderful ideas, but a lot of it's kind of impractical. So, I don't know. I think you just want to see what people can do and what people have done, because you're hiring as much on attitude. I think that's what I look at. I mean, you get lots of really talented people, but you're also looking for attitude as well. And then, particularly in sort of the creative sort of side of things, show us, show us what you can do on a Mac. Show us the basic stuff, the stuff that I know you can walk in here and, start working straight away, make a contribution. And the things that you're interested in outside of it, what kind of music, what kind of art, what kind of stuff do you make in your own time,
Okay. So what advice can you give from a personal experience to students and some future hopefuls trying to get into the industry?
I think, look, it's an attitudinal thing, like, I think to get an opportunity is just such a valuable thing, and you should be so, I guess, understand what a privilege that is. And, it's just about managing your expectations, because, to get a foot in any door is a really, really important thing. So, you have to be prepared to work really hard. You have to be prepared, to do it. It's unfair that you don't get anything, because that's not fair, but you've got to just manage your expectations. And a lot of time, people come into this and they sort of expect more than, what they should be. And you just got to be prepared to just do anything. Listen, work hard. What else? Try everything, Yeah, that would be my only kind of advice.
Just going back the full 360, where did you start?
I, back in those days, sort of did quite a strange course, which was sort of a visual communication. So it was a bit of everything. There was printmaking, there was sculpture, there was typography, photography, illustration, all sorts of stuff. But I kind of always like to write and draw and those sorts of things. And it wasn't until we did a bit of a field trip to an ad agency back in those days, I kind of walked in and, there was a bit of a light bulb went off in my head, because I could sort of see it, this is really, I really liked that environment. So much to my teachers, my tutors' horror, I chucked all my paints out and did all my own life drawing on magic markers and stuff like that to sort of learn how to do storyboards and stuff. And then the agency that I went to on that visit, as soon as the thing had finished, I went straight back to the creative director, Ian Harvey at the time, and said, can I come in and work here in the holidays and blah, 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 and kind of got my foot in the door that way. But as I say, I saw what they did. We did figure drawing and stuff. As I say, I went and I bought a whole set of magic markers, and in those days you used to, do squeaker roughs. So, I just practiced the kinds of things that they were doing, so that I could go back and actually do stuff that was valuable to them. So yeah, it was understanding what they needed and how I could fit into it, and made sure that I came armed with some sort of skill that could get me doing storyboards, which is sort of what I started doing, and marker layouts and all of that stuff.
Mate, that's fantastic. Andrew, thank you so much for taking your time.
Okay, I hope that was all right. God. Oh, shit, there's a bit of waffle in there, Ross. If you didn't even do anything